SprintCarUnlimited.com, coming from Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We're with High Limit opener winner Cory Day. Nothing changes. Last year, a lot of wins. Come back. You're not full time this year, but again, back in victory lane, first night out.
Yeah, it's awesome to win first night. I've said for probably the past 8 years of my racing career, I just suck at the first race of the year. I just always do for some reason. So I think I'm finally at the point now with this stuff that I know what I'm doing to where, I could take a year off or 6 months off and, I can get right back to the speed I left off at. So just super awesome to win, of course, to beat Kyle, to beat Rico, to beat Brad, just makes it that much better too. So really, really glad that we, could fire off with the speed we ended last year with the inconsistency in tires and just different stuff over the past couple of years. You really haven't been able to start the year with the same thing you ended the past year with. So we kind of went out on the limb doing that. Luckily, we got another 14 car over there for some R&D for me, and they were good. So we went right back to the same thing, and was really, really glad it worked.
It's got to feel good to know you can still get out here and win. You're dividing it up this year, and I don't know. I don't want to say this feels like a part-time job now, but it's got to be fun to get back in these things and then also be competitive, and you're going to race a lot of these events this year.
Yeah, for sure. It almost takes just pressure off me. Last year was my first full year racing for points, and the first couple races of the year until I won at RPM, I was just worrying about points, and I shouldn't have been. So this year, I don't have any worry besides going to win races, and that's really encouraging as a driver to only have one thing on your mind to do every time you go to work. So just super happy to win the first one of the year, like I said. Super grateful for Jason Myers and Preston Cross for putting a basically second team together for me, whether it's part-time or not. It's not easy and it's not cheap. So just super, super grateful for them and, all our great partners, Driven Saves Lives, Myers Constructors, Sports East Construction, Tally Oil, just everyone that's, a returning partner and everyone that's, new as well. It's a group effort, of course, and I'm super, super grateful for it.
You had a weird race. You take the lead, the start's waved off because of a caution. Then Pittman was gone pretty much, and then you went from second to fourth on a restart, then you battle back to second. It was wild out there. Take me through that whole sequence. Is it just, I don't know, what switching lines, just track changing?
Yeah, the track changed a lot. When we first rolled out with it being so cold, it was almost kind of had a film over it. It was greasy. So on that first restart, first initial start, I was able to fire off outside Pittman really, really good and clear him, and then that got waved off, and he's a veteran at this point, and he's not going to let me fool him twice. So didn't get him back on any of the restarts, and for a while there, I thought I had no chance with the yellows coming out before we got to traffic. I don't think anyone was beating the 69K in clean air, so I was glad to see him run out of fuel, and I think he would have had that thing won if he didn't.
Were you worried about running out of fuel?
No, I wasn't. I was really aggressive with my fuel valve and the cautions, and we're usually pretty safe on fuel. We run big fuel tanks. So I wasn't worried until I saw someone else run out, and then I wasn't really sure exactly where we stood, but the end of the yellow came out, so it was all good.
You line up in the lead. Kyle's behind you. Been through this before, and you were kind of low in 3, and then you'd skate up across 4, and he could get a little bit of a run and turn on. Were you concerned there a little bit the last couple laps that he'd be able to get under you at that point?
I was a little bit. The first lap of the restart, I tried to go as early as I could have on that start and hit the bottom right in 1 and 2, and I did. So I knew running slider line, he would have really had to have a great 1 and 2 above me, and I just think that lane was, not as good as the bottom lane. So I just kind of did what I was doing. If he would have beat me, then, he would have probably done something that I wouldn't even thought of, like he always does. So, just glad it worked out.
Congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Well, I guess it's afternoon. SprintCarUnlimited.com, coming from Las Vegas. We're here with High Limits Brad Sweet, and big announcement yesterday, obviously. I think it pretty much, I called it a bomb across the sprint car world, and I got to be honest, I didn't expect what was released, but we wanted to sit down with you and kind of talk about it, maybe There's been a lot of questions on different platforms and whatnot, so I won't keep you too long. I know we got a race tonight.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of pressure on you guys, High Limit, Even Flow Racing, your staff, to come up with a charter, now franchise. I want to use that word a lot, franchise. There's been a lot of pressure on you to come up with this. It's been a year, been a lot of talk about it in the industry. What's that process been like from a timeline standpoint and getting this done to be able to announce it this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think it started, years ago, a few years ago when we talked about starting the national tours, that we wanted to do something different. We wanted to treat this more as a business for the team owners, and we want, people investing in our sport and them to have something, a tangible asset such as a franchise. And so, we didn't know exactly how it would work or how it would look, but this is the first big step to, professionalizing the sport, taking it from a hobby to an actual sustainable business for team owners who invest, so many hundreds and thousands or millions of dollars into the sport. And, it's not really a sustainable business. It's not a professional sport if it's, a hobby and it's every owner loses money year after year. So it's certainly a goal is to try to, change that narrative a little. And we certainly are working really hard to do that. And, I think it started 2 years ago when we put that out to the teams, like this is our goal. And then as we got closer, we basically weren't sure exactly what that was going to entail. And, with the success of our first year and seeing our viewership and seeing our sponsorship and seeing the tickets sold, we were able to put together a very lucrative package that outlines the next, 4 seasons for these owners. And it's really neat to be able to look into the future and create something that is going to benefit so many different teams.
What was the timeline on this in that when did you finalize it and when did you really see this form and how long did that kind of take?
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a work in progress for a long time. You got to really break down, where the sport is monetary-wise and see why the teams aren't, as profitable as they need to be. And, once you kind of get those figures and see, what are the available monies out there, and, you don't really want to change, the entire sport. There's a lot of great things about sprint car racing, the purse money, the big events, things like that. And so we felt like seeing where the money was at, kind of going over some of the numbers with some team owners on what they actually spend, this is a big step in the right direction. It was kind of like putting it on paper saying, okay, can we get these teams the type of money that they actually need to be meaningful? And I think we were able to kind of look at it and put something that's very meaningful for the teams out there.
You could have leveraged this, say released it in December, and could have leveraged this to get outlaw teams over here. You didn't do that. You chose to, release it in Vegas after their season started. What led to that decision? Was it about rewarding the teams that were with you in 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had, the highest viewership and, great success with our ticket sales with the guys that came and believed in us, and we want to reward them. But ultimately, we want to create a system, franchise system and a series that, ultimately has the best entertainment and best talent and best team owners and the people that are investing, that want to invest in the sport like we want to invest in the sport. So, of course we have guarantees for and rewarding our teams, but there's, going to be some opportunity for some non-franchise teams potentially in the next few years to, if they really like what we're doing, to possibly come over to High Limit Racing. And we'll disclose exactly how that, is going to become available at a later date. We don't want to, necessarily get out too far in front of ourselves, and we really want this to be about the 10 teams, and high limit teams that supported us in these first couple of years when we didn't have the numbers out in front of them. They did this because they believed in, Flo and mine and Kyle's vision, and you bet on people. I've been saying that for a long time. So, they bet on us, and it's really rewarding to give them something that, is going to benefit them so much.
Okay, now some of the particulars, I understand them, but a lot of people don't. And so you have the 4 million, 4.3 million, 4.6, and 5 in each of the next 4 years. Okay, and then you have the 2.6 million for the first year. You have a $1.4 million gap. Okay, I think people don't understand what's that extra 1.4 million for.
Yeah, it's Basically, it's pools of money that are going to be, for incentives for performance-based, and then it's also pools of money for non-franchise teams to compete for, because we don't want to put a wall up at 10 and say, nobody can compete in our series. So we'll disclose exactly how that's going to look, but you can see there's a large pool of money that's going to still be distributed on top of what the guarantees are. And, the franchises, will have opportunities to make more than what they are guaranteed, and non-franchise teams will certainly have opportunities to race for very lucrative money.
So you have 2024 and 2025. That's how your 2026 is divvied up. Is it the same where for 2027 it's 2025 and 2026?
It's a 2-year revolving door. So you add up your 2 years, divide it by 2, and then as the next year happens, you're eliminating that year. You'll add up those 2 years, divide it by 2, and it's just continuing to do it that way. So your franchise won't move as quick as if you just have a really bad year, and so it allows the owners to maybe plan into the future a little bit more. They'll be able to make budgets off of where they know they're going to have the money coming in, based off their franchise position, and hopefully that stuff won't change too dramatically too quick. That's why we chose the 2-year revolving points finish, because if 1 year you have an off year, you're going to lose substantial money, and that's not really great, for a franchise system.
So a new team comes in. All right. Do they have to wait the 2 years to get the franchise, or say they don't buy one, which we'll get to in a minute, but they come in, let's say I own a team, I'm coming in next year, I basically have to have a 2-year performance deal to possibly earn a franchise in, say, 2028.
Yeah, I certainly we have it outlined, and we're going to disclose it when we feel like the time's right, but there will be that opportunity to get the franchise, to earn the franchise, based off performance, and we'll disclose exactly how that's going to happen, but everything's going to be moving in a 2-year window, and so once we disclose that, and the money that's going to be available for those franchise teams, we feel like then they'll be able to make decisions based off what's best for their teams.
Okay, I'm David Gravel. I wish I was David Gravel. He has more money than I do, but David Gravel. Hey, you know what? I'm going to buy a franchise. I'm going to say a team that earned a franchise this year, I'm going to purchase it for them. So now I have a franchise. How does that work? What points do they get? Do they get whatever that franchise accumulated?
You'd be buying the history of that franchise. Yep. So there's value that you're building. Now these teams are building their value with what franchise they have based off their performance, and you're going to be able to sell that to the next guy if you decide, hey, I'm out. I don't really want to do this anymore. The next guy could buy that, and the valuation will be somewhat off supply and demand, and somewhat off of what guarantee that franchise is going to have for the next few years. So, it's added value for sure for the team owners, and I certainly think that there will be some buying and selling of these things, especially as we grow the sport and grow the values of these things.
Well, and an incoming team could just offer an exorbitant amount of money because they see the potential down the road. Now, one of the pitfalls, maybe, we don't know yet, would be, okay, I'm in it since the beginning, and now somebody else just comes in and buys one. Some people would look at that as, hey, I paid my dues more, yet they can just, because they have a lot of money, come in and buy one. How do you explain that to the teams that have been there throughout this whole process? And that's kind of a slippery slope a little bit.
Well, I think with a franchise system, what changes the mindset maybe of a team owner that's going to view it that way is that there's as the overall money grows, then the franchise grows, and then as we grow into a potential profit sharing system, beyond 2029 to add, you're going to want all the best, and you're going to want the best for the sport because it's going to be a win-win for you. So, yeah, I think there's going to be short-term, discomfort in some of the situations, but if you can, have a wide lens and look at the big picture of where we want to take this whole thing, I think you're going to be okay with a little bit of a short-term, situation that you're not 100% in love with.
Welcome to another edition of SprintCarUnlimited.com live. Well, I think I jumped the gun early. Welcome everyone to SprintCarUnlimited.com live, a show devoted to the fans. We have plenty to talk about. We have Fuel, World of Outlaws, High Limit, Central PA. You guys decide. But before we get into the chat or phone calls, we're going to hit on some of the storylines heading into this show, and they're all from the weekend and last week. At the top of the list, High Limit announced its franchise system. I'm not going to go into the numbers because, well, they've been done ad nauseum and they're all out there. But I will say I think it's a pretty good system, or at least in my opinion, the numbers look pretty good. And I don't know. We'll see. The object was to make this sport feasible or more affordable for owners who have already, joined the series, or anybody who maybe comes over in the future. I think they've done a pretty good first step toward making this sport more affordable, at least for the big teams. On the track, Cory Day gets the win in the season opener for the High Limit season opener. Excuse me, I'm still on West Coast time in Las Vegas. Fuel was really the talk of the night, though. Darren Pittman was leading class of the field, had everybody covered. He started to run out of fuel on lap 24. Dropped back to, I believe, 7th before they threw the caution. Brent Marks was running out at the same time on lap 25. Incidentally, Rico Abreu actually started to run out earlier than Pittman. So just something interesting. I know Mike has set the laps, the total green and caution laps at 65. He told me on Saturday night that he stopped it at 60. I have a friend who I will call Dr. Midnight. He knows who he is. He said that he watched the flow tape over and Darren Pittman ran 50 laps. Admittedly, I apologize. I haven't been able to watch it yet because, my plane was canceled Sunday, got back, and I've been dealing with stuff to get kind of back on track. But we can talk about it. Fuel tanks has also been a hot topic this week. Of course, Pittman, Marks, and Abreu had 28-gallon tanks. I thought it was interesting. Brad Sweet routinely runs a 33-gallon tank. Kyle Larson and Cory Day each had bigger tanks on. So I don't know which is the right way to do it. But, hey, David Gravel also runs a 33-gallon tank, and it hasn't hurt his performance. I know this. A gallon of gas or a gallon of fuel weighs roughly, I'm hearing, between 6.2 and 6.8 pounds. And I know if it were me, I'd run a 30-gallon tank because that's what series directors base their laps on. Also, David Gravel didn't win last week. In fact, he didn't even lead laps. Two guys who have been struggling ended up in victory lane at Kennedale Speedway Park. Gio Scelzi had one top 5 going into the weekend, and he finishes first and third. Buddy Kofoid, who was also struggling, even though he's in the top 5 in points, got the win on Saturday night at Kennedale to get the season back on track. Speaking of getting back on track, in Central Pennsylvania, Freddie Raymer gets the win at Lincoln Speedway. It was much needed. He started the season with uninspiring 7th and 24th place finishes. Didn't have a good he didn't have a good season a year ago. Of course, Chase Dietz was second, Danny Dietrich third. If you want to talk about any of those 3 guys or anything else in Central Pennsylvania, feel free to leave a comment or give me a call at 1-844-543-8589. And we're going to go to the chat or the phone, whichever comes first. And guys, we're ready to go. Okay, watching from Tulare. I wish I was at Tulare. I've never seen the place, unfortunately. Tough to get a credential there, I think. Okay. When do you think we will hear what the Woo is doing for their point fund program after High Limit released theirs? I thought this was strategic genius from Brad Sweet because it was kept under wraps. I mean, I didn't know about it at all. And usually I kind of can get a feel for what's going on. I didn't know until maybe a week before, 2 weeks before, that there was announcement on franchises. I had no idea what the numbers were. So this didn't leak out, and he did it late enough that the Outlaws couldn't do anything. So well played. I think we're going to have to wait till the offseason, or maybe Knoxville. They have a meeting at Knoxville, the Outlaws, so I think we could hear something there. Hey, Jeremy, watching from Australia. Nice. Appreciate it. Would like hearing some Perth Aussie talk. Any news, guys, coming over this year? Perth produces bangers only. Woo and High Limit didn't compare to how good it raced this weekend. Track selection matter a lot. Nathan, it's disappointing to me that sometimes you get this big buildup of events, 4 events, and it just doesn't produce what it might on a weekly basis. It's disappointing, but I watched Perth. I think Perth is a great facility. We had Dyson Motorsport shut down, or I should say kind of exit the sport. They're not getting away totally, but they're going to shift direction, which could affect Carson Macedo next winter. I'm not sure, but Sean and Felicity going a different direction with their family. I expect them to still sponsor stuff. I don't think they'll field a car, though. So we'll try and get some Aussie talk in the future. What else we got? Don on line 1. Don, what do you have for me?
How you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. Not too bad.
I see that you're pretty favor with the High Energy Series going to a franchise. The only thing I didn't like about it was, like in their own opening statements, like comparing it to football and baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to be that. Only because those sports are paid money ahead of time. You know what I'm saying? Through TV rights.
Correct.
I'm all for the advancement of sprint car racing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 75 years old and been watching them since 1966.
Well, the one thing I will say is it is yet to be determined how they're paying this out throughout the season. So they will get some, or maybe get some at the beginning. It's up to the owners how they want it. I think they're still coming up with a system, if it's going to be quarterly, or if it's going to be monthly, or if it's going to be at the beginning, or 3, maybe beginning, middle, end. So they might be getting money up front. Now, is it going to be worth an NFL franchise? Well, no, absolutely not.
No.
But I do think I can't find the downside from the money standpoint. And I tried. I thought about it. When I was in Vegas, I thought about it for a good 16 hours or so. What is the downside to this? And I can only think of one. And I've said it to a couple people today. I don't think it's great for local racing, but I think local racing's
sorry.
No, that's okay. I think local racing's on the decline anyway. And is it Brad Kyle's or even Brian Carter's responsibility to be mommy and daddy to the local race scene? I don't know the answer to that. I think sometimes, whether it's the World of Outlaws or High Limit, they have businesses to run. And granted, they depend on local speedways, but I think it's a slippery slope. And when guys don't want to run their own business, say the right way or change. So that's a tough one, but I don't think it's great for local racing, but I don't know if that's sustainable anyway.
Well, the thought that came to my mind was half the entrants are going to be independents. And if you're running a business, you want to run it with your own people. So you look at independents, you go to Pennsylvania, you got Danny Dietrich and you got Lance DeWeese for as long as he does race again. What's in it for them?
Big purses.
Now, I heard that statement about we're going to help them out. Well, yeah, that's kind of vague. How they're going to help out the local drivers, whether it's Pennsylvania, the Midwest, California, or Texas, Oklahoma. I hear Kyle Larson say from time to time, "Oh, we want to go into the South." Well, good luck with that, because there ain't much sprint cars in the South.
It's true.
Late models, yeah, and pavement cars. I used to live in Virginia, so I know. I used to go to the Virginia Motor Speedway, and the Outlaws went there, what was it, 2010? And you couldn't get anybody to watch the race.
Right.
Those people don't even know what a sprint car is.
Right. Well, let me address before you get let me address the first part. They do have money set aside for a non-franchise point fund. Now, how much that is, they're not making that announcement yet. I expect it in the next month or two. I think they're going to have contingencies, obviously incentives. That's all part of that, because like for example, 2026, the top 10 franchises they equal 2.6 million. There's an additional 1.4 million in there for everything else. So what's the benefit for Danny Dietrich or somebody like that to run High Limit? Well, he's not going to run the whole High Limit tour anyway, because he has a job. He has Racers Used Parts Warehouse. But he's going to take advantage of good purses in the East. And Brad and them said that they said they're going to keep raising purses. Now, what that looks like, I think we'll know at a later date. As for going to the South, I'm always leery of that. I do think the main sprint car areas are yeah, I think the main sprint car areas are obviously Central Pennsylvania, number one. I think you get in that Knoxville, Huset's area. I think California, but that's sketchy sometimes. I think maybe in the Texas, Missouri, that area down there, it seems like there's some, guys can put 410s in, but you're right. I mean, you start getting in Virginia, the Carolinas, places like that. Yeah, you're going to have to, it's going to be difficult to get cars. So, I mean, look, go ahead.
No, I'm saying, even the shows I've gone to at Hagerstown, the fans aren't really there.
Well, Speed Week's been jammed the last
one show.
Speed Week's been jammed the last.
I didn't go last year.
Yeah, it's been jammed the last few years.
I went the 1 year Kyle Larson was there, and Rico was there for that, and I think the All Stars were running at that particular night. But
yeah, I mean, Hagerstown does really, really well for Speed Week. At least the last 3 or 4 years. But I wouldn't go any further south than that.
But that's what I'm saying. Like I said, I lived in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I was 40 minutes from the Virginia Motor Speedway. And the only Pennsylvania regular that came was Lucas Wolf.
Yeah.
The only guy that showed up.
Yeah.
And they only had 19 cars and 4 305s that run somewhere out in Western Pennsylvania or Western Virginia. And I'll be honest with you, they didn't belong on the racetrack with a 410.
Yeah, that happens a lot in a lot of places. Not so much here.
That was actually horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was actually a horrible situation.
Yeah, no, I'm not big on 360s and 305s.
I mean, I hope it all works out, and and Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet are successful with this, and I don't know how much of the backing from Flow Racing, but they're going to show the stuff, so they got to be in with them.
We'll find out how it goes. I mean, I expect a few questions about money coming up, which I have a couple of real good answers. So stay tuned for that. Don, thank you very much. We're going to go back.
Okay.
Thank you. So,
I have another question for you if you're not in a hurry.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you listen to the Drivers Project.
I do once in a while, yes, when I can catch it.
When you can catch it.
Yep.
I try to see it because I really like Sam Hefferty, who had a good last Saturday night with the Outlaws, running second. But J.J. Hinkle said something that kind of irritated me, that he could have had the ride Zach Hampton's in, the 6 car. if he pays $3,000 a week to Rose.
Okay.
And over the years, I thought that buying rides kind of killed IndyCar racing. And I hate to see the same thing happen to sprint car racing.
Yeah.
Now, he said if he came up with $3,000 a week, he could have been in that 6 car.
I don't doubt that.
And I don't know how much of that is going on. I mean, I know from what I read and see, Danny Dietrich does so much work on that 48 car, preparing it, keeping it up to date. I know his owner Kaufman has his own business, and Danny's pretty much running that show. But
well,
I'm just hate to see.
So you're fearful
rides for sale. I don't know what it is. Huh?
You're fearful of it, is what you're fearful of that practice. Well, look, I can tell you.
I went through the 70s.
Go ahead.
I went through the 70s, 80s watching Indy cars, and your favorite sprint car drivers and dirt champ car drivers got to Indy, and then all of a sudden the rides are for sale. And I never liked it. It brought some great drivers like Fittipaldi and other guys, but they came with the big bucks, and I hate to see sprint car racing turn into, give you an example, just Joe Gibbs wants his grandson in a great car and offers $1 million to an owner, to a kid who's not there yet. And I ain't basing this on his last Saturday night. He got into a bad deal there, and thank God he's not hurt. But suppose Joe Gibbs wants to give an owner $1 million, put his grandson in the car, and owners go for it.
Well,
it's $1 million up front.
Well, here, I'll address that. And we got to get back to the chat, or we're piling up with questions. Don, thank you very much, but I'll answer that. Look, I can tell you in the 80s, the form of payment was motors. Guys brought motors to teams in the 80s because I know a couple guys who did. 90s, definitely. Now it has, there's like probably 1, 2, 3 rides off the top of my head. 2 with the Outlaws. Sides Motorsports, Rose. Obviously, the money changes hands. It's just a product of expenses going up. And let's face it, it pays pretty well to run a national series, whether it's tow money. It's just something it's going to happen. There's no way you can stop it or slow it down. Do I think it'll ruin the sport? No, because I still think there's more family-owned teams or guys who at the national level, they're going to want more money, and obviously you got to have a better driver to do that. Don, I appreciate you joining the show. We got to get back to, we got another call. It's Willie on line 2. Willie, what do you got?
Well, this is what I got, and I really don't understand what's going on in the sprint car world. But maybe you could answer this question. Where in this country does sprint cars 410s run 30 laps on a half-mile racetrack?
Well, I've seen it at Port Royal. I've seen it at Lincoln Speedway. It's kind of like a smaller half, but it's still listed as a half. Baps Motor Speedway's done it. Williams Grove's run 30 laps already.
Okay, so none of those tracks have a fuel stop.
Sometimes they do. I've seen fuel stops. It's like anything else. If you have a lot of caution flags, and I've seen fuel stops at every one of them.
Okay. Well, what I'm used to out here in California is seeing, you only have one, you have 2 half-mile racetracks,
right?
And I don't think either one of them run 30 laps.
Yeah, I know Lincoln runs 30 laps every week.
Well, especially, okay, but you said it's a small half mile.
Yeah.
Would you run 30 laps at a big half mile like Las Vegas?
Well, Williams Grove's bigger, and I've seen 30 laps there.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yep.
They must have a really good track crew, did they have a mandate on fuel cell size?
No mandate. And I can tell you the laps at the combined green flag and caution laps, I've seen 55 and 60 at Williams Grove, depending on the air quality.
Okay, what I'm trying to get at is, okay, they'll run 30 laps, but they'll have an occasional fuel stop. That's correct?
If there's too many cautions and too many laps, yeah.
Okay. I just, I think it would be better, this is my opinion, of course, it'd be better for sprint car racing in general if the sanctioning bodies that run these races would mandate a fuel cell. Because I'll tell you, everybody, even the announcers thought Pittman was going to win on Saturday night. And the car starts starving for fuel. I guess he had a smaller cell on. Several other people didn't. But, I don't know. Sprint car racing is never going to get to where NASCAR is unless they start mandating things like this. So, and I think the biggest problem in sprint car racing today, at least with high limit, is you've got race car drivers running the series. They don't have any clue on how to be an official.
No, I would agree with that. Now, I do know. First off, the fuel tank deal. Look, I think you're rolling the dice if you put on a 28-gallon fuel cell on a half mile when the air's that good. I mean, I was surprised that Brad Sweet runs a 33 every week, and so does David Gravel. They run 33s. It's the biggest they can run. So, I mean, look.
That's the biggest one they sell?
That's the biggest one on a 410 sprint car. So, look, that's personal preference. I know setup comes into it and other things. I've talked to some people today about that. So, it's up to the team. As for Brad and Kyle running the series, I do know on race day, because I've been in the tower, and I also, even this past week, Brad walked. I don't think Brad knew really I was there, but he'll go up to Hess afterward and he didn't know necessarily what happened. I don't think they give calls. Kyle Larson learned his lesson at Tri-City 2 years ago when he stopped and tried to.
He should have been penalized,
right,
for stopping
right,
too, but they didn't penalize.
No, and that I have not seen anything like that again, where they were involved in any calls at all day of it. In fact, Brad's not in communication with the tower. So
how many cars ran out of fuel at Vegas before Rico did? And as soon as Rico ran out, they threw the red or they cautioned.
Well, no. It was really Rico ran out first before Pittman. Pittman ran out. Rico was running out on lap 18 or 19 because he was running second and sputtered and got above the cushion. I talked to him afterwards. He was searching for fuel and he nursed it. Gotcha. Now, so then Pittman, then it was Brent Marks. Once, and I think somebody else slowed. So once Pittman, Marks, and the other driver did, that's when they threw the red. Rico was the first.
But weren't there a couple of guys that ran out or pulled into the infield before that happened too?
Brian Brown pulled in the infield, but it was because he couldn't see because a rock hit his visor. Yeah,
right. I heard that.
It wasn't fuel. He was the one before that, and it wasn't fuel. So
right. Well, as far as my question about or my statement about sprint car racing is never going to get to NASCAR level with money,
right,
sponsors, corporations, until they get this right. And they keep, maybe I'm a traditionalist or not, I don't know, or a jerk, I don't know.
No, you're not a jerk.
I don't like to see a pit stop for sprint cars. I don't like it.
I don't think anybody does. I don't even think talking to drivers, they don't want fuel stops. unless maybe they're running fourth and struggling. But I don't know if sprint car racing can ever be NASCAR regardless, because it's just different and it's fragmented and it's, different tracks do different rules. And there's so many variables with sprint car racing. I don't know if it could be as big as NASCAR, even if they run everything perfect. So, just because of the fragmentation of sprint car racing, they do something different on the East Coast as opposed to the West Coast. There's different rules series to series. Until everybody gets on the same page and there's kind of a governing body, that's not going to happen regardless. But no, they should get it right just to get it right. I mean, regardless of the money, they should be trying to get everything right. I thought the 65 laps was too many. When I heard that, I knew it was too many. So that was a mess up for the officials. And should they have let it go to 65? Maybe. Brad Sweet would have won. I guarantee you Brad Sweet would have won because I know how much.
That's what we don't need.
No, I know, but he's the one. He had the most in the tank at the end of that fuel stop, and it's because he ran the bottom the whole time. He never got off the bottom. He was about 3/4 throttle, so you save fuel that way. So,
right.
I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I'd like to see him just all say, you know what, you got to run 30 to 33 gallon tanks and you just got to get your laps right. And Mike has said that. Race director Mike has said that. He admitted he made a mistake. I got to go back and watch the video. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens and if they can learn from it.
All right. Well, thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
And maybe you should take a trip out to California sometime.
I was out there in 2017, and I will get out there again. I promise. I love the sprint car racing in California.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you calling. All right. What do we got next? Okay. David, have you heard anything about Wrightsville status for tomorrow night? I have not. As of this show, I know he has a broken nose. I know he has stitches. I am not sure if he's going to be in the car tonight or tomorrow night at Tulare. I know I would think it'd be tougher tomorrow because Tulare is a bull ring up on the fence, kind of giddy up as opposed to like a half mile at Port Royal. So we'll see. Haven't heard anything yet. Jump the cushion. Poncho's posted on social media a sprint car hauler and mentioned high limit. Any idea who could be driving this car and when? Poncho's posted on social media I don't really understand that one, but I didn't see anything about Poncho's. I just saw a post on Facebook that the Poncho 93 sprint car is back. Okay. Good. Look, we need cars out. I mean, especially in central PA. I think it could get a little slim over the summer months. So I'm curious who's going to be in it. All right, Bob, any additional info on Prutzman leaving? No. And because I know he was in Vegas. He has a brother that lives in Vegas. So he was out there visiting his brother. I didn't see him at the track, probably because of the rain and the wind the first 2 nights. He's going to take 2 weeks, maybe longer, to evaluate what he wants to do. And then we'll go from there. I'm sure his phone's ringing off the hook, though. I mean, he's one of the best crew chiefs in the sport right now. T-Bet or 17 Bez. Question on the work area. Is there a limit on how many times the same car can go to the work area and get 2 minutes under cautions in the same feature? Not that I know of. I've seen cars go to the work area 3-4 times. I mean, I think past halfway, you get no guaranteed time. That's been a compromise as of late. Again, we all know how I feel. No work area. I maybe compromise on a tire going flat because it could be debris left from a accident or a crash. But I wouldn't care if there was no work area at all. I know I had somebody tell me today it adds an element to the show, and You know what? I look at it this way. Nobody ever walked out of a racetrack and said, boy, I missed the work area coverage tonight. Or, you know what? I'm mad because nobody went to the work area. I have seen people leave the track complaining about the length of time it took to get the show over and that they weren't coming back. So you tell me which one's more important. Moving on. What else do we got? Marie, the races at Port was the best racing this past weekend. She's talking about Short Track Super Series and the Modifieds. Yeah, the Modifieds put on a great show. The battle for the win. Can't argue with it. Can't argue. I wish I could, but I can't. Dirt Kings Media. Will we see big teams put money into developmental rides? I doubt it. The sport's expensive enough, and now I don't see. Like I could see. I don't even know if they do that. I like with the 14 car with Jason Myers racing. You could say, well, Cory Day's going to run, experiment with something maybe to help Spencer Baston. But I doubt that seriously too. They want to win races. I don't see that happening. I just think it's too much money. Somebody would have to come in, like now some teams can afford it. Todd Query can afford that, but he's not going to do that. I don't see that happening. Jesse James, either do the open red or don't. Not wait until the owners are on the podium. Here's my thing with that. If they were going to take care of their guys, they'd take care of Rico Abreu, who's probably in the top 3 most popular drivers in the country. And they didn't. They didn't. Kyle Larson was going to be on the podium anyway. It would have been Darren Pittman, Cory Day, and Kyle Larson. That would have been your podium if everything goes as planned, so to speak, or as, I don't want to get into the whole, they skewed the race so Darren Pittman would lose. I don't buy that. And I also always buy into Tom Deary a long time ago. Tom Deary is with the World of Outlaws, who was high up in the World Racing Group, said to me, it's better when a non-regular wins because they sell more tickets the next time they come. So we can, I know it's okay. Everybody wants to say it doesn't look good. I'm not saying that. It doesn't look good, but it's bad optics. But I just think you'd take care of Rico then, wouldn't you? So, and they want Darren Pittman to come to their races. You think 69K shows up outside of Pennsylvania? It's not popular? I don't know. Every time they go to Knoxville, it's a big deal. They went to Texas last year. It was a big deal. So I'm just not ready to go there yet. What else do we got? Dustin, in all of your years of following sprint car racing, what driver do you think has been the most underrated in central Pennsylvania? Wow. Most underrated. Whew. That's a tough one. That might be one of the toughest questions I've ever had. Todd Schaefer was pretty good. I know he gets a lot of credit here, but outside of Pennsylvania, he really doesn't. I also think, this is going to sound dumb, Stevie Smith Jr. is better than people think. Should have been a first ballot slam dunk Hall of Famer. Took a few years for him to get in. It was ludicrous. Ludicrous. So I think those two guys, I think Billy Pouch was phenomenal. Again, could drive anything. Kind of on your maybe your guys you think of now. I think people view Danny Dietrich. Danny Dietrich can race with anybody. He doesn't time trial well, but he can race. So as a racer, Danny Dietrich's really good. He just doesn't always have himself in good positions. I think sometimes with what he says on Twitter or whatever, maybe rubs people the wrong way. But I think if once his career's over, you're going to look at him and go, you know what? He was a top 10 guy in the best sprint car area ever. So There you go. Jump to cushion. Let's pivot to another controversial topic. Why not? Freddie Raymer and the scales were a hot topic on social media post-race. I know you were in Vegas, but did you hear anything concerning that? No. And I didn't hear anything. Did he not? There was an incident last year with him in the scales. And if I'm not mistaken, it was wrong. Like the track was wrong in letting it slide. I don't know what happened. You know, again, I was in Vegas. So not only am I 3 hours behind, you know, all hell broke loose out there. So I can only handle so many problems at once. But I will check into it. Definitely check into it. What else we got? Bob, why are crew guys so hard to find and why do so many move around so much? Well, I think they're hard to find because I don't think kids nowadays are necessarily gearheads. And obviously, you got to start them young. It's not a glamorous job. You're traveling around the country. That's nice, but the pay's okay. And then there's the work ethic. They'd rather be at home. I think society has changed. You have your video game era type thing. You know, guys just, they don't want to leave the nest. We have that a lot now. I mean, I know people who are home and they're 30 years old, and it's not because they're taking care of anyone. So I just think society's changed. As for why they move around, money and performance, moving up the line. If they're with a smaller team on the road, they want to move up to a TSR, KKR, you know, Shark Racing, you know, Big Game Motorsports, whatever it is, you want to move up the line. It's like any other job. You're going to move to a better company. All right. Tyler Swank, the slicker the track, the worse the air is. The better fuel mileage you get because guys have to run the throttle. Also, the detune, you can lean it out. You can't make all, you aren't making all the power. Yeah, I mean, Tyler would know. I agree. And the air in Vegas was pretty damn good. So, look, I think they missed on the Vegas thing. I think there's enough blame to go around. I think it's not just one party. I'm not going to put it all on Mike Hess. Look, smaller tanks. Mike Hess missed on the laps. He admitted that. I think there's a lot of moving parts there, and just hopefully everybody learned from it. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate it. Hope all is well. What else do we got? We have Kelly on line 3. How you doing, Kelly?
Pretty good. How you doing, Jeremy?
Not bad. Not bad. What do you got for me?
Yeah. The high limit franchise question. So it don't start until next year.
Correct.
So the guy that wins the point series next year may not necessarily win the biggest payout because it's a 2-year average. Is that my understanding of it?
Yes, I think what's going to happen is, and that's one thing that hasn't been made clear yet, but you're going to have a non-franchise point fund. So let's say somebody goes over there and wins the title. They're going to get whatever first place is in the non-franchise point fund. Your top franchises are going to get that money that you saw that was released. It's kind of a little convoluted on that end. That I'm sure Brad and them will clear that up. In fact, after the show, I will text him.
Yeah. So I mean, like the guy that wins it next year, the point title next year, say he finishes 6th this year and wins it next year. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a 2-year average of 3rd place. So would he get 3rd place money in the point?
Yes.
In the payout?
In the payout, yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, depending how many
Yeah.
points it is, it's not so much an average of positions; it's not your points. I think it's points. So yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, so
Okay.
that's how it works. I mean, it's a 2-year rolling average. Your 2027 payout will be determined by 2025 and 2026. 2028 will be determined by 2026 and 2027 together.
So I assume there's probably going to be some kind of a tiebreaker, if somebody averages out the same
I'm sure,
over
yeah.
2 years.
Probably. Look, if it were me, like
Yeah.
everything else, it'll probably be wins. It's how everything's
Yeah.
done. Again, they didn't release that, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt if it was wins, it makes sense.
Right.
It should be wins. If it's not,
I think it's a real good deal. I mean,
Sure.
I mean, yeah, I think it's a real good deal. I mean, anytime you add more money to the sport, it's going to be good, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't know what people want. I think they want it. Look, if there's a 10-step program, I think people want it to go from step 1 to step 10. No, you can't skip 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6, and 7, and 8, and 9. So I think it's a
Right,
great
right.
first step. I think the money is good. I don't care where it comes from. That's the other thing. I don't care. I mean,
Right.
as long as they're not doing anything illegal, I don't care. When you work a job, do you care where the money comes from? As long as the check cashes. I know where the money's
Exactly.
coming
Right.
from.
You're right.
I know
You're
where the
right.
money's coming from. It's coming from streaming, advertising, and sponsorship. Flow is a big part of that. And guess what? Flow has an annual revenue of $100 million a year. I find it online.
Yeah.
Their valuation is between 100 and 500 million as of 2019. And the number I found was 247 million valuation. Where's it coming from? I think they're fine. I think they're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, Jerry, that's all I had.
Okay.
I appreciate everything you do. Enjoy listening to you.
No problem. Thank you very much for calling. All right. We have Andy. A talking point here in Australia currently is traction control. Is it a big concern in America, sprint car racing? Just asking as a fan. Yeah, I mean, it's always, I think the hard part's finding it. I've heard put it in suits. I heard that, guys putting it in their driver's suit, I don't know, 10 years ago. So then you got frame rails, you got this, you got that. Yeah, traction control is always a hot topic. And I think it's always going to be a hot topic. Honestly, when you talk teching, I don't know if everybody wants good teching because it's really hard for me to find good teching. So especially at the local level. Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. Teching's non-existent. So, yeah, I think Australia probably has a better handle on rules and running how they run things better than American sprint car racing. Just my thought. What else do we got? Got Mike on line 4. Mike, what do you got?
Good evening. I wanted to talk about the rocks.
The rocks. Yes.
So it's a good sized half-mile track.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of sandy, kind of dusty, a blacker dirt, I assume.
No, not black. No, I didn't think it was. No, actually, I was surprised. No, it was more reddish. It was closer to that than black.
Okay, so red and sandy. So did you personally see any of these proverbial rocks?
I did not. I mean, when I walked up to the track, you can look down and you see it. I mean, the track's built between mountains. It's going to have rocks. And now I'm not saying that that's okay. I'm saying it's the way that track's always been. And even if you go, they've tried to get the rocks out of it, but the moisture and your table underneath your water table keeps pushing the rocks to the surface. So I don't know if you can get the rocks out of that place.
Right. So when we talk about a rock, are we talking about something the size of a marble, something the size of a golf ball?
I think it's more close. I think it's definitely closer to a golf ball than it
Wow.
is a marble.
And right. And so as is public knowledge, Reitzel wasn't running a screen on the front of his car,
No.
a rock screen. Why would you not run a rock screen? A vision?
Yeah, I mean, look, Donnie Schatz him and I've talked about, he doesn't wear a rock screen on the car because of vision. I've heard other people, same thing. It's a vision thing. Danny Lasowski,
Wow.
I've talked to him about it. He does not run a rock screen or used to because of vision. So it's all personal preference.
Okay. Right. Seems weird. And I wasn't going to bring up the fuel issue because you guys beat it so bad already, which it deserves to be beat. I'm a big Donnie Kreitz guy, but what's he thinking running a 28-gallon tank on a track like that? It's just what they do, huh?
Yeah, look, it's very hard for me to argue anything the Kreitz team does because they're one of the fastest cars in the country. And I think what's lost in the fuel thing is the performance of that car. Look, it went to Texas last year, 2 runner-up finishes. It's made the Knoxville Nationals. They go down to Dirt Car Nationals, they win. And it's something I'm going to write about coming up. They do things a little old school. They do things their own way, and they do it well. If they choose to run a 28-gallon tank, I would assume they have a reason for it. It's probably a setup thing. I don't know. I've not talked to them about it, but man, that car's fast. That car's fast.
Oh, yeah.
And they would have won.
And I totally agree with you that I wouldn't doubt anything that those guys do. They're really good. And he was super fast with Bell in it on Friday night before they canceled, right?
Yeah, I can't even remember. I was so busy writing
Thursday night.
I was so busy writing franchise stuff. But yeah, they were good. I mean, the car's going to be good. And you got quality guys in it like Pittman and Bell.
Yeah, exactly. And lastly, so when he's running, again, fuel consumption, he's running out front like that the whole time, and I guess running as hard as he can. That's a bad thing. Like, are people behind them, like you talked about Brad Sweet just running the bottom and doing less throttle. So by running out front, are you using more fuel than other guys?
Yes, you're in clean air most of the time. The air was really good. Yeah, they're going to burn more. Brian Monteith used to run out all the time. I mean, Brian Monteith ran out a lot in PA. And again, full throttle, running hard, running out front. And he'd run out before everybody else.
I've watched that 21 many times.
Yeah.
All right, you're the best, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right. Let's see. Charles, kind of excited to see how Ryan Smith does in that 69K this year. Could there be some pressure on him with how good the car has looked so far this year? Yeah, I mean, there is. I like Ryan. I hope he does well. I think he'll do well. Anxious to see because it's where he kind of started his 410 career. So I'm anxious to see going back to that, what it looks like. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say there's no pressure when, Seabell wins at Dirt Car Nationals. Darren Pittman should have won Vegas. He had him covered. So yeah, it's kind of tough. Santos, I didn't get to keep up with what happened in Vegas. How did Chase Randall look in your opinion? He struggled. Kind of what I would expect. First time out, new team. I mean, I know he's back. Kind of his family deal with Albach helping him out, but he struggled. So I'm not surprised. I expect him to be better as we get some races in here. Justin, if a race is based on a cell size and you run a different size and run low on fuel, that's on you. Am I crazy for thinking that? No, I mean, that's the short answer. No. But guys, I mean, look, I mean, I'm not going to blame it all on, I mean, you make the choice. So, yeah, I mean, but the laps were too many. Now, if I go through the tape and I see 50 like I was told, I mean, I don't know how you do that. So, but he was out front again and he was moving. He was moving. Darren was moving. But like I said, I think there's enough blame to go around with everything that happened. And unfortunately, that's what we're all talking about. Jump the Cushion. Big Diamond is a track close to my heart. Why? But no, sorry. What do they have to do to become a player in the 410 scene? I personally believe that the coal region would love them on a regular basis. When they had Speed Week shows there, they got good crowds. I enjoyed it. Boy, the 12 car was really fast up there a lot. So I don't really know. I know I have heard some safety issues. When the 410s were there the last time, some of the guys came back and voiced some displeasure over some safety issues that now I don't know what specifically they were, but that's what was passed along to me. All right, Randy, why wouldn't local tracks periodically take their half of the 50-50 and give it to the driver's purse? It might help out some teams a little. Not a bad idea. Now, again, do they have small chance and gaming licenses? I hope nobody with the state is watching, but still got to have small chance and gaming license. Now, whether they do or not, I don't know. Maybe you don't have to if it's going to a charity. I don't know the rules on that, but it can be a sticky subject, especially in a state that has gambling. So, like Pennsylvania does. John Kiley, when is Ryan Smith running the 69K this weekend? I'm not sure when his first race is. I wouldn't doubt that it's the Port Royal opener because the Kreitz team usually seems to show up at the opener. I hope so. I'll be at Port Royal this Saturday taking in their opener, so hopefully he's there. Ken Joseph, how big were the old school tail tanks through the 90s? Ooh, that might be a question for Brad Doty because I wasn't reporting on sprint car racing at that time. I was just a fan, so I'm not 100% sure. Maybe Tyler Swank could answer that if he's still watching. If he has the answer or somebody can chime in and let me know that, I apologize. I don't know that one. Dirt Kings Media, what are your thoughts on Flow Racing releasing the amount of viewers per event, not releasing the amount of viewers per event? They're a private business. They can do what they want. They release it. I know High Limit. I know they release it to High Limit. Within the confines of High Limit, I know they get those numbers. Why don't they release them to the public? I mean, they're a private company. They can kind of do what they want. So maybe they don't want to. Maybe they don't want people to know how many people are watching. So, what else do we got? Santos, how do you think Logan Wagner will do this year in the 55? This will be the first time in a long time I've seen Logan run without a top name crew chief, Tommy Carl, Kreitz Brown. I think if he runs every race, he's going to win the points up there. And it'll be going away. I know Mike Wagner said in the story with Kyle McFadden on Flow Racing that Logan's first priority if equipment gets thin. So we'll see. I think he wins the champion. I think he wins the championship if he runs every race. Next up, we have Charles H. Seems like Flow is betting on getting a good number of new streaming accounts due to High Limit. I bet at least half or more of them will have Dirt Vision shortly after. This will help the Outlaws. I think they have enough to cover it now. I mean, think about it. They have all the late model race. They have the bulk of late model racing. They have how many sprint car tracks in Lincoln, Port Royal as of now? They have High Limit. They have USAC. They have NARC. Who are they missing? that you're going to get a ton of streamers. I wouldn't doubt if I'm not going to say topped out, but I don't think their biggest acquisition of new streamers is I think that's happened already. I think 2020, 2019, 2020, 2021. I think people would be surprised how many subscriptions they have. So I don't know if this is so much about. Now, obviously, I think they want to expand to new audiences and maybe bring people in. Will they purchase World of Outlaws? I don't know. World of Outlaws is more expensive. I don't know if people are going to be willing, or new people. Your traditionalists, yeah, they'll pay both. I don't know if your new people will pay for both. We'll have to see how that goes. Tyler Swank, 28, I believe, but we were making 650 to 700 horsepower instead of 900 to 1,000 that we do today. More horsepower, more fuel. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate that. That was the late 90s when I started. There you go. There's an answer to that question. I appreciate it, Tyler. Dirt track racing sights and sounds. How much do you regret being in Vegas and missing another killer modified show at Speed Palace? Oh, God. Be honest. None. Believe it or not, I grew up on modifieds. Penn National was the first place in 1977 that I went to a dirt track race. Modifieds, electrifying Elvin Feldy, Craig Van Doren. Don Kreitz Jr. was in a modified when I was at one time. I saw him in a modified at Penn National. So I like the modifieds. I don't mind them. Am I going to take it over going to Vegas without sprint cars? No. Will I take it over Vegas and sprint cars? No. So nice try, though. I like it. Al, the sun is shining here in the Central Valley, looking like 65 tomorrow in Tulare at 6:30 p.m. Good deal. I will definitely be tuned in to Tulare, see what's going on, see who's in Reitzel's car, see if the locals can, put up a good fight. Should be good. I heard Cory Day will be running tomorrow at Tulare. It's not on his schedule, I believe, but I think it's been updated. What else do we got? Santos, how do you think Logan Wagner will do this year in the 55? Oh, we answered that one already. We got that one. Randy, Sammy Swindell will be visiting EMMR in the near future. Will you be there? Jeremy, should be interesting. If I can catch it, certainly. Sammy Swindell, by the way, one of the most underrated interviews I've ever done. I know people think he's, quiet, whatever. When you get him talking, he's very knowledgeable. He's a great interview. I've never had a problem interviewing Sammy Swindell, and I don't know. Yes, I will definitely make my way over there for that. Okay, Bruce. Why didn't Dennis Roth throw a couple bucks at Chase Randall or Danny Sams and have them change their numbers to 84 Jr. for Vegas to keep running for a franchise? That's a good question. I mean, Chase Randall, the deal with Dennis Albach was gonna happen. I don't think Dennis Albach and Roth doesn't have a bunch of sponsors on his car. So I don't think that was going to work. As far as Danny Sams, that's a good question. Roth Motorsports doesn't need the money. Okay. They're not. I just think there's maybe other things going on there. Brent Ventura went back to California. I don't know. They just, TRD might have something to do with that as well. Toyota. So I think there's a couple different reasons, and I don't think anybody really knows for sure why they didn't go that direction. I would have thought of, honestly, of course, even Buddy Kofoid, that team did not know what this franchising was going to be. But Kofoid at least, I think, finishes third in high limit points. You're looking at possibly $300,000 there. it's going to be tough to get that with the World of Outlaws because of David Gravel. So again, I just think it's something that wasn't on their radar, and I wouldn't be surprised if Roth isn't back at some point. We'll see. What else do we got? Okay, we have Brad on line 6. Brad, how you doing?
I'm good, Jeremy. How are you?
Not too bad. What do you got for me?
Oh, well, listen, going back to the tank size in the 90s,
Yep.
that's when I raced. You and I talked a couple weeks ago, but you know, at that era, that time, it was 16 gallons up to 35-gallon tanks with
Okay.
bladders.
No?
So, yeah, and you know, we ran Knoxville a little bit there in the big tracks, so we would always have the big tank. So I think that makes sense. I mean, you can put in what you want, right? To qualify
Sure.
or whatever you want to do.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, this weight thing has always been a challenge in racing. I get that, but yeah, just give you a heads up, you know, or whatever. What I know about the 90s, it was a 35-gallon tank with a bladder.
Yeah. I mean, the bladders are also getting thicker in these tanks, and you can't get as much in.
Because of safety, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, now I have heard that there's a couple companies that still make the ultra thin bladder. You just, not the traditional. So I don't know.
I got you.
This is a moving target, I think. And if indeed everybody has to go to the thicker bladder, I think some adjustments might have to be made as far as laps and everything else. Look, this was one race too. I don't think like Tulare.
Exactly.
Yeah, Tulare's not going to have this issue. I mean, hopefully. Sometimes it can get a little convoluted, but out in California, there could be a lot of cautions. But this was one race. I think, too, we need to pump the brakes. Let's see if this is something that becomes a problem, or if it's one race. So we'll see.
Well, absolutely. Let's see how this rolls out. But that was a rare instant, you know, in Vegas, I think, or running out of fuel.
That many guys, yes.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know. I'm going to leave that alone. But I have one more question for you, Jeremy.
Go ahead.
What do you think about what's going on with Sheldon?
I mean, go ahead. In what regard?
Well, he just it doesn't seem like he qualifies very well at all, and that sets him back. I like the guy. I want him to do well, but he just doesn't finish very well.
Look, Sheldon's very streaky. Like, I think he'll still win 8-9 races this year, but he's going to have nights where he doesn't do well. He's not a point racer per se. I think his style.
Gotcha.
I think his style is he's aggressive. Now, I don't think he's the most aggressive, but he's definitely on tilt out there. And I mean, look, that's what makes him. That sells him a lot of T-shirts. It's gotten him some wins. I mean, his style has earned him some wins too. So, look, it's just Sheldon's going to go through stretches where he doesn't do well, and he's going to be stretches where he's lights out. He'll time well. He'll win races, and obviously he's a talented driver. He just, again, there's with his driving style and kind of how things are. I think there's just going to be times you accept the good with the bad.
I got you. Do you think his ride's safe with him not finishing up front all the time?
That I don't know. I mean, look, I hear rumblings, obviously, but at the end of the day, look, Nas puts a good amount of money in that car, and they like him. Obviously, they like him, and so we'll see. I mean, if this year, if he struggles to the point where he doesn't get to victory lane much, I think that that's a problem. I think he definitely, if he's not going to win the points, which nobody's beaten David Gravel, I don't think. If he doesn't win races, I think it becomes a problem. But again, 8-9 races, I think it just buys you time, because not a lot of guys are winning 8 or 9 World of Outlaws events.
I got you.
So
yeah, I just wonder why him and Ripper they can't get the qualifying down.
Well, Macri's struggling with that
qualify.
too. Macri's struggling with that. I don't know if it's a package or something's going on. That I don't know. I'm not out there full time, but I think that'll change.
You do? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, listen, Jeremy, I won't keep you. I appreciate your time, and I love your show.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. All right. Go ahead. What do we have? Braden Sage, this guy. Does Penn State break 200 team points this weekend with 6-7 champs? Asking on behalf of myself and Roach, who's Ryan Hand. I don't doubt it. That team's loaded. Come on. They're as much as it pains me, yes, they're the king of college wrestling, and that's not going to change. So there you go, Braden. Brent Smith, what's your take on tacos? I traveled with Brent to Vegas, and I don't eat Mexican food. I don't eat Spanish food. And he's always trying to shove a taco down my throat or go someplace where I said I'd try it. I've had them before. It's just not my thing. I'm Pennsylvania Dutch, for crying out loud. So my daughter likes tacos. Maybe I can send my daughter out with Brent. She's 12. So Bruce, why didn't Dennis Roth throw a couple bucks? Oh, we already got that one. Okay. Are we drawing dead now, or what's going on here? Let's see. What do we got? No, I already answered the Dennis Roth question. Again, I just don't think those two teams, and Danny Sams, I believe he didn't exactly commit early to high limit. So better a taco than it's burrito, Tyler. Ken on line 7. Ken, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good tonight, Jeremy. I was just questioning, have you heard anything on any of the Australian guys coming over this year? I know there was some talk last year that the guy that was in the Trone car was going to bring his own stuff over this year, but I haven't heard anything lately.
James McFadden, I hear, will be back for a short amount of, short time. Jamie Veal will be back over. I've heard Callum Williamson will run over here a little bit. Guys like that. That's who I expect at this point. I think you'll see a couple of others. Attard will be over. I expect him. Maybe a couple guys.
How about Newton? Newton's been over.
Yeah,
the last
I expect Newton to come back as well. I know Danny Dietrich helps him out with in Central PA. So I expect Newton to be here as well. So those 4 or 5 are the main ones. I'm sure there might be a couple of other stragglers along the way.
It sounds good. The only thing about the gas situation,
yep.
I remember the Dream Race at Port Royal. Logan Wagner was on his way to victory last year.
Yep.
And the 69K ran out of fuel.
Yes, he did. He was running. And, that's a good point. I forgot about that. So, Ken, he was leading. He was out front. The air was good. Kind of the same thing. And they ran out of fuel. So, I don't know. Again, 28-gallon tank. I definitely think on a big track, you could be pressing your luck.
All righty. Thanks a lot for taking the call, and we'll look forward to hearing you next week.
No problem. Thank you, Ken. All right. Are you going to do any deals for the stream at BAPS? We already have our deal set with BAPS. We don't really stray away from that because we're in a partnership with BAPS. One of the things with SprintCarUnlimited.tv, we directly share revenue with the racetrack, and we want to give them their fair share. it's a pretty good split as far as revenue. And so we don't really make deals like that, or, because again, we're partners on the deal. It's not all I mean, obviously we do the producing, we do all the kind of legwork with that, but we do share revenue directly with the track, because if the tracks don't get their fair share, they're not going to be here. And then I don't have a job. So, and you have no place to go watch races. So that's where we're at on the split, and that probably won't change. Bruce Sando. Gee, I know Bruce pretty well. Talking track prep. When will some of the venues make multiple lanes so the race is exciting week in and week out, especially the big shows? I don't know. I think Kings Royal is pretty good last year. Knoxville is usually pretty good when Kyle Larson doesn't start on the pole and turn it into a snoozer. Look, I think it's a moving target. I think every racetrack, regardless of size, has its clunkers. And I think that regardless of size, they have their good nights. Even, yes, the Grove, despite what people think. So I can't prep a track, so I'm not going to pretend to tell them how to do it. Now, I've looked at some things and went, why are they doing this? But, I talk to guys, obviously, about track prep and lean on them. Look, here's the thing, too. None of them want rubber. None of them want a bad race. They all want good races every week, so you come to the track. It's a moving target. You have weather, a lot of conditions, a lot of variables. And again, I'm not going to begin to tell them how to do their job. I'll complain, though, when it's bad. So like everyone else. Chase, I find it interesting the 69K was predominantly local car for 15 years. Any idea what has made them go opposite and run bigger shows outside PA and go with pick and choose drivers? That's an interesting question. I think there's opportunity for them to have some guys in the car who, look, if you can get Christopher Bell in your car, you do it. Simple as that. He's one of the best drivers in the country of anything. So you obviously do that. I think Darren Pittman, look, Darren, I think 2013 World of Outlaws champion. I think you want him in your car. I think it comes down to who they have, who they can get. And, I think I wouldn't doubt if they got some help from the series to go there, because from a series standpoint, you can generate some viewers by having that Kreitz car there. It's an iconic car, and boy, is it fast. And I might be writing about that later this week. I think the days of, Don Kreitz Jr. and that team are really, really good. So a lot of speed. The Chaz, why not Zeb Wise in the 83 Junior? It's a good question. I don't know if Roth really wanted to come out. When I say Roth, I mean the people who run that organization. I just don't think they wanted to come out this year. I think there's stuff going on. Dennis's health and other things. I just think that's not the direction they decided to go. Personally, I probably would have moved Buddy Kofoid over. I don't know if Buddy would have done that, but that's what I would have done. John, what was the deal at Scales this weekend with Freddie? I got this question earlier and I don't know. And it's because I was in Vegas. So I apologize for that. And I've heard nothing about it. Even the people who, when I'm out of the area where I go to rely on people, they didn't say anything about it. And of course, we don't have much media in sprint car racing, so nobody says anything. I know if I would have been there and saw something, I would have said something and written about it and so on and so forth. Last year, there was a problem. I believe it was last year, there was a scale thing where he didn't go to the scale and they DQ'd him, then they didn't DQ him. I think it was last year. The years all run together at this point. So I'll definitely check on that. I apologize for not knowing. Again, I was in Vegas and got back last night at 11:30. Only so many problems we can deal with. Okay. Dan, will Woo have the same restrictions that the guys can only run 4 races outside Woo for the bonus? Yeah, this year they do. I don't know what the future is going to hold with that. At some point, the Outlaws are going to have to give on some things. Now, what that is, I don't know. Is it just sticking more money into the series? Maybe. I get why they do it. I don't have a problem with them doing it. They are protecting their brand and their product. If you have a race 5 days before World of Outlaws event and you allowed David Gravel, Macedo, Gio, Donnie, and all them to go to that race, why would you pay to see those same guys at a higher price 5 days later? So now, has it been proven that it's an issue? No. That's the only thing I'll say about it. It has not been proven that it takes away from an Outlaws event. However, I understand the thinking behind it. I don't think it's a huge deal. I never did. If they're protecting their brand. Hey, Tom Brady isn't going to play in a USFL game. He's not going to play Canadian football. He can't. Not allowed. So I'm okay with their 4 race thing. When they gave that to their teams, I was satisfied with that. Randy, I'm wondering about the 410 car count at Lincoln later this season. Losing the 8 car to Port. Klein car will probably run Port. Several other teams are talking about traveling a little this year. Yeah, I've said that earlier on earlier shows. I'm concerned about it. I think the first 2 weeks I counted like 7 or 8 cars that out of their field that were regulars they're going to be there every week. That could be a problem. And I think Port Royal, at some point, that could be an issue up there. But the difference with Port Royal is it's kind of a commuter track up on that Route 80, and you might get some guys from Western PA. I think these tracks are going to be a lot like Knoxville, where, guys in the region are going to just pop in. And I think Central Pennsylvania within its own area. Danny Dietrich's going to move around. Billy Dietrich's going to move around. Tyler Ross going to move around. Chad Trout going to move around a little bit as opposed to in the past. So you're losing regulars. It is a concern for me. It's looked good so far, but they've been the only game in town. That changes this week. So we'll see what happens. But yes, it's on my radar this year. It just seems like every time we talk about it, things level out. But who do you think is going to win Rookie of the Year with the Outlaws? I said Hunter Schoenberg initially. I know a lot of people have Cole Macedo right now. Cole Macedo's there were a couple races he didn't take provisionals, and I was really, really surprised by that. Now he can make it up. Cole Macedo, I think, has the most potential to run in the front, but Garrett Williamson looks really good. So the points are close. I just did something in my top 50. I think the difference between them's like 60 between all the rookies. Garrett Williamson, the top rookie right now. I'm going to stick with Hunter Schoenberg just because I said I would. When they get to these small tracks, I think he'll do well. So I'm going to say Hunter, even though that kind of doesn't look good right now. So do people think that Woo guys actually want more than 4 races? Like the 85 shows, that's still a lot of racing and racing for good money. Okay, pop off to race elsewhere. Yeah, that's the other thing. I think when the weather's bad and they lose a bunch of races, I think that's when it becomes a deal where they want to race elsewhere. I mean, really, the schedule for the Outlaws doesn't allow for it that much. I mean, they had 90 shows this year. I mean, where are the weeks you're going to run? So, yeah, I agree with you. I think 4 races is plenty. And, again, they're protecting their brand. It's their business. They don't owe us or really anybody. I mean, look, I get it. I understand it, and I agree. I don't think they're going to run like 10 races outside the Outlaws. High Limit has 60 races. So it's kind of easier it's just 2 different models. All right, Santos, how do you think Preston Latimus will do this year? He looked very good at Lincoln this past weekend until he unfortunately ended up on his lid in the feature. Very impressed with his debut. Yeah, he started 10th on the grid, got upside down. Look, sometimes you got to know when to say when, and that bit him in his first race, but I think he's going to be okay. I liked what I saw. I liked what I saw from him in 358. I think he'll catch on. He's young. I think we give him time. I think he's going to be okay. And I think having Kyle Reinhardt there, I think helps him. Kyle has experience. So I think he just got over his head a little bit. That's going to happen for a young driver. It's happened to every young driver. Donnie Schatz notoriously says how much equipment he bent up that first year with the World of Outlaws. So like Preston Latimus a lot and anxious to see how he develops this year. Okay. Kokomo Dan. Jeremy, what's your thought on inverting heat races? Watching gravel set quick time and start on the pole of the heat and up front with a good dash draw tends to get a little old for me. Well, okay. Two things. Number one, the sport, when you go to an Outlaws race, how many guys have not won a feature? Very few. The cars are so equal now, you can't invert. When they did this in the 80s and the 90s, there was a gap between the have and the have-nots. It was huge. So it was easy to see passing. Nobody talks about that. The difference between the Weicker car, and I'm a big Doug Wolfgang guy, huge. He was my favorite driver growing up, but the Weicker car was different than, the other cars in the field that weren't Keith Kaufman, except for Keith Kaufman and some other guys. Randy Wolf was good yet, but it was better than Billy Steef just grabbing a name out of the air, or Richard Lupo. So there was a gap. Now that gap is non-existent. Anybody can go buy speed out of a box, get hooked up on the cushion. Here's the second thing. If you change that format, you think David Gravel isn't going to figure out how to time better? Guys do it at the Kings Royal every year, or they try to. Then they stop because you spin the wheel now, and they don't know what the invert is for the heat races. That's why they brought the wheel out. Guys were figuring it out. Guaranteed, these drivers aren't stupid. They're going to figure out how to time where they need to start near the front. But it's just so equal now. That's the problem. Everybody wants inverts. Again, you have to have a gap between the have and the have-nots to see passing. Unless you're at a small place like Kokomo. So there you go. What's next? Robert, at what point does slowing economy and tariffs on steel and aluminum affect sprint car racing? Are you hearing anything from owners as of yet? I heard a couple things, but I'm not going to jump the gun on that. Do I think it'll eventually? Well, sure. Because I don't care what anyone says. Business 101. Rising costs, it's getting passed on. Companies are not going to pay the freight for rising costs. It's going to get passed along. So maybe not this year because they're kind of messing around with it, I guess April 2nd. So you might not see changes this year, but if this drags on, I think you'll absolutely see it. That's what a tariff is. It gets passed along. Company's not going to eat it. I don't care. That's always how it's been. Chase, big fan of the Forbrook 5. PPM is in it. How do you see them doing this here? I think they can win the Knoxville title. I think Guy Forbrook's excellent. If his health is good, I think PPM is pretty good at Knoxville. He makes the Knoxville Nationals A main a couple times. I like Parker in that car. I think it's going to be a good pairing. I think you're going to be good at Knoxville, and honestly, right now, my favorite to win the title there. Brian Brown probably won't run for it, and Austin McCarl, I don't know if he's going to. If he does, it'll be a battle between PPM and Austin McCarl. So, Guy Forbrook's tough, man. So. Billy, do you think it hurts Woo when Gibson doesn't mention high limit wins when announcing drivers, unlike high limit announcer? Now, I don't think people care. I don't think people are sitting around waiting for it, hurt them. No, I don't think a fan is saying, I'm not going to go to the race because he doesn't do that. Is it petty? Yeah, it's petty. I don't understand it. That's one thing. The Outlaws have always been kind of like that. So I'm not saying Gibson does that on purpose. I just announce it. Who cares? But they don't do it, and that's just what they do. So I don't think it costs some fans, though. Okay. I think we're down to the last question of the night. Went a little longer. Jeff, my take, Cole Macedo not using provisionals because the 2C team is not a returning Woo team. Good point. They did not get the unlimited provisionals at Dirt Car Nationals and only have 2 provisionals to start 2025. Good point. I definitely overlooked that. That's on me. I'll definitely check on that just to make sure. But they were really bad some of those nights too. So, but yeah, so kind of something with toe. There's a toe money thing, and also if you weren't a team from last year, they have some different rules in that platinum agreement. So I'm not up on all of them. So, them not being a team last year, that probably does hurt them. And Garrett Williamson made every A meeting down there, so it never came into play for him. Hunter Schoenberg, I don't have his stats offhand, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what. I'll definitely check into that. That's a good point. All right. I think that wraps everything up. Again, I appreciate everybody joining the show and calling in, all the calls, the chat, and going to have a lot to talk about next week. We have High Limit at Tulare tomorrow. We have High Limit over the weekend. We have the World of Outlaws at Cotton Bowl. I believe High Limit's at Tulare tomorrow, Kern County, and go to Paris. The Outlaws, Cotton Bowl. We have a full slate in Central Pennsylvania next week, or this coming weekend. Williams Grove on Friday night, Port Royal and Lincoln on Saturday. So we'll have plenty to talk about next Tuesday. Stay tuned.